match one. It's going to be Y versus Magicbullet. So let's get right into it, starting with Tier 3. Since these are all labeled, we'll work our way from Tier 3 right on up to Tier number 1. So, alright, game number 1, here we go. Y versus Magicbullet. Let's see who's going to have the upper hand today. We actually saw some games of Y the other day. Sounds like to me my sound is maybe a little bit low, if indeed this needs to change, and now it's too loud. Let me know. But yeah, in the bottom left-hand corner as the white Terran, we have Y. And in the bottom right-hand corner as the blue Terran, we have none other than Magicbullet. Of course, this is CPL Tier 3. We're starting Tier 3 and then working our way on up in skill. I believe Tier 3 is somewhere around sub 1400 points. I forget the exact specific distribution, but I believe that's roughly what we're looking at here. So this is probably more or less E level. Could be anywhere in there. Y felt like he was probably a E level Terran, and I don't think I've seen Magicbullet play, so we'll be getting to see his play here for the first time today. Tipo going down on 9 for both players, so at least the opening here looking pretty normal, pretty standard, pretty comfortable. A little bit of discussion about previous games played and maps and such things. And of course the map, if you guys can't already ascertain, or if you're really new, the map is Fighting Spirit. Great map. A little bit overplayed. If you've been around the scene for a long time, you might have gotten maybe a little bit tired of it, but it's just a good, solid map. It's a good map to learn the game on. You know, things are simple in certain ways. It's fairly straightforward. Pretty symmetrical map. Used a shit ton. And let's see, we have a barracks going down here for Magicbullet. And a barracks for Y. Now, how are we on our timings here? Looks like we're at about the same here. So it looks like both players at least have some sort of early build down pat. At this point, we're going to have an SCV scout going on. Now, we notice Magicbullet has built his barracks quite far back into his base. That would be unusual for the other matchups, but if he's intending to take this barracks and scout to the left, I agree with it. And then Y has also built his barracks fairly forward, so that's good. Usually in TVT, it makes the most sense to place the barracks somewhere where you're going to have the quickest reduced scout distance towards another base. Barracks are almost universally used in TVT to get extra scouting intel. And in comes the SCV here of Y. Going to be taking a look around. Marine is out. Going to chase that away. Let's see if he starts a second Marine. It looks like one Marine for Y here. He's got enough gas. Factory's already started here for Magicbullet. Y's factory going down now. And idle Marine. I guess the SCV just kind of ran around the Marine and died. Didn't really get microed. So Y hasn't seen a whole hell of a lot, but now the Marine going to be positioned here at the front for Mr. Magicbullet. And we're going to have a second Marine. It looks like Y is maybe sticking on one Marine. If he is, I would like to see him float that barracks. There we go. Alright, so we got the barracks popping up, floating on out. See what's going on. And we got the factory coming down here. And we got one on gas and one on gas for both players, so not looking like either player is intending to open with tanks. We're just going to see some vultures and an expand coming up. Oh, and look at this. Why is SCV slipping around these two Marines? He is going to be able to see that factory here. See what else he scouts. At the moment, not much else. Has not actually seen the CC go down. His SCV was already in the base before that. And then meanwhile, Magicbullet dropping on down here. So far things looking pretty organized and smooth and crisp for each player, so that's not bad. I would, just on this alone, I would be inclined to think we're looking at like E or D skill level here. Most F players, in my experience, they struggle to follow a build consistently. And a vulture for Y here is going to deny the scout for Magicbullet up to a point, but Magicbullet has seen that command center going down and the factory on the way here, and we're going to get another depot. The barracks are going to say hi to each other. It actually looks like Magicbullet moved his barracks out a little bit and then kind of, well, forgot about it. Alright, so Marine and Vulture chilling at the front. And we've got 3 back on gas and 3 back on gas. And, oh, actually, You know what? Despite taking SCVs off gas, Magicbullet is opting to open with a siege tank. Now he's playing extremely defensively here. More defensive than you would ever need to for TVT, especially given that he's already seen a Vulture with his, and an expansion with his SCV. He doesn't need to be this far back at this point. If you see an expansion, you see a Vulture, you know what Terran's opened with. There's no real danger. You can set the tanks and the Marines here out at the natural, or even fairly soon here, considering going to the bridge or starting to move out onto the map, because TVT, of course, if you're new to the map, is all about map position and map control. It's much less about, I'm going to attack and kill my opponent. Oh, Vulture runs in here for half a sec, but the siege tank is going to go ahead and shoot away on that Vulture, and in the meanwhile, Marine's starting to tickle the barracks, but Magicbullet has seen what he wants to see. He's seen a factory, he has seen a starport, and it looks like the tank here is sieging up for Magicbullet, and a second tank is out, and if he seizes a second tank here, oh, so this is extremely defensive for Magicbullet. And there are these Vultures coming in. They shouldn't really do a whole lot. He does have mines out, and he is getting a starport of his own. In fact, it's a little bit faster. Now, will we see a control tower added here? Are we thinking Wraith? Are we thinking dropship? I think we'll still probably see some Wraiths from Y first. It'd be a little unusual to get a dropship with just one factory unless he really wants to go Vulture drop. But there's a pretty good spotting barracks in position for that. Sieged up pretty defensively back here. I don't feel like Vulture drop would be super powerful. And of course, here's the potential concern. These tanks obviously are chilling here back on the ledge, so it's defensive, it's strong, but it actually isn't defending the natural because the tank range only shoots out to about here. So Y can come in here and siege a tank here, and then he's actually already attacking the command center. So that's a bit worrisome here. And the other worrisome thing is Y is being allowed to get these mines and actually set up a tank here, and he's getting more or less a contain for free. And oh, Vulture's running in here maybe a little too far here. Looks like they are held position, so they are going to fall to these tanks here. Tries to come forward, so not really able to pay attention to those. And money running a bit high here for Y. You see that it is going to be a Wraith. Now that is a nice move. That will allow him to get rid of this tank here, especially because he's made a dropship. Well, that makes it doubly unfortunate. He could have at least tried dropping the Vultures into the main or something similar. Now, there is a tank back here for Magicbullet to defend. Probably a bit on the unnecessary side, but he has... actually, no, he hasn't gotten an SCV in to scout that starport, so he actually doesn't know the dropship is coming. And he may eventually need to bring this barracks back over here to use it for extra spotting. And with this Wraith, he can actually go over here and kill this barracks and deny the scouting. We can see there's a scan going down. I'm going to assume that's a Magicbullet scan, simply because, well, it wouldn't make any sense otherwise. And hey, 80s Mullet, thanks for the host, man. It is appreciated. Alright, now here is the drop loaded up, but remember, there is one tank here. Let's see how the reactions are. Plenty of time to see it. He should notice. But of course, this is E level, so it's not a guarantee, despite... Okay. Tank is moving around, so he's definitely aware the dropship is coming. First of all, we got another tank coming back. Looks like no movement from Y at the natural here, so just focus on the drop. No mines being laid as of yet. Vulture's taking quite a bit of damage. That's a pretty good glitch, though. Will get one mine hit. He actually gets a tank out of that, so that is nice. So trading 2 Vultures for a tank, yeah, okay. Not the most destructive drop in the world, but certainly a good drop here. Really nice for Y that the mines glitched out in that manner. And we can see, oh man, alright, so Magicbullet is really going for the Magicbullet here. He's going to go 3-port Wraith and just say, fuck you, you're going to die to my race. I don't think you're going to make anti-air. And somewhat nice for him, he has not actually shown his hand as far as Wraiths go. They're just kind of there, existing. He's got one over in the corner here. I don't believe he's killed a dropship. Oh, there's the dropship, okay, yeah. So he hasn't shown this Wraith. He's making more, so he's trying to kind of keep them hidden and then come out here with a bunch of Wraiths and be like, hey, sup, boy? Sup, boy? How you doing? And do we have an armory? That's... Okay, we do have an armory. But we are not adding any Goliaths yet. I don't know if range has been upgraded. And Y is starting a third base here. He has the contain. I still dislike the fact that Magicbullet is sitting in his main. This is really a rough spot to be in. I mean, if Y makes a few Goliaths, and yeah, he's getting scanners and such, maybe a turret, then this contain is never getting broken. Y is on 3 bases, and Magicbullet has just ceded map position to Y. Oh, what a scam. Okay, that should prompt a switch. Okay, immediately Goliath begin. So that... Why Magicbullet has his moment now. He needs to go bust up this container with the Wraiths and get out on the map. If he gives Y enough time to get over here with Goliaths and throw up a few turrets at home, it will be a very easy game for Y to win. He'll just have perfect map position. He'll have a much faster third base. He'll be just in a great spot. I mean, there's no way he's really getting out. He could try to go into drop ships, but I don't think he's going to do that. He's invested so much in these Wraiths. Y really needs to get a few more factories down. He does have 5. His economy is really starting to kick in. Well, I say that, but actually I lied. His economy is actually not starting to kick in because he hasn't made quite enough SCVs here. In fact, he's very deficient in SCVs. It tends to be a case for most low-level players just don't make nearly enough SCVs, so the economy is a bit weak, and there hasn't been any sort of a transfer yet. Although, in fairness, given his SCV count, like, this transfer is actually not worth it because he's... Well, actually, no, that was about perfect. All right, well, I take that back. He transferred just the right number. He does have 1 per patch, but you can see his saturation is only going to be at about 1 per patch, which is very deficient saturation, especially for 11 minutes in the game. He should have at least 2, maybe even 2.5 per patch, and if he did, he'd probably be at, oh, I don't know, 140 to 130 to 160 supply now, instead of 98 supply, and just be more or less ready to A-move. Wraith's coming in here to do a little bit of harass, picking up a few SCVs. There's 1 turret up. I guess he's not going to engage the turret. Certainly 8 Wraiths is enough to go for the turret and dive on if you want to. Although I will say, remember, Y hasn't made too many SCVs, and this little counter of Wraiths here has been totally unprepared, and there's no actual response yet from Y. And oddly, Y's response is going to be to dive in here, and this, as long as these tanks siege up, well, he'll actually be able to get in here and kill the natural, but if Magicbullet just sieges up, this is going to be a disastrous move for Y, although Magicbullet is very, very out of position, fighting with primarily unsieged tanks here. I guess he just wants to secure his ramp. Meanwhile, the Wraiths are killing all of the SCVs. Now we have the siege up, but it's going to force a lift. He needs to lift his natural. Oh no, he's not going to. The natural is for sure going to die. He's not paying attention to it, and 1 Wraith here will break up these tanks, and the base is safe, but Y is losing a ton of SCVs here. Supply dropping quite a bit. There's actually a Wraith here. Now there's just 1 base mining. There are 2 turrets there. There will be enough turrets to deter these Wraiths with any sort of a repair. Should not be fighting these turrets. Needs to probably run away, maybe bring the Wraiths back and clean this up, although now there are 3 Goliaths here, so a very entrenched position for Y. That was really unfortunate. I honestly think that that was a terrible decision for Y to do this. But had Magicbullet just put the tanks up here and sieged up, given the way Y did that, oh, he's actually running forward into the tanks, so this will potentially allow the moment that the, well, maybe not, there's a few more Goliaths back here. I was going to say, if the Wraiths actually clear this out, this game can become okay for Magicbullet, but he definitely needs to get rid of these tanks. Wraiths kind of firing away a bit willy-nilly here. But like when Y was moving in, if these tanks would have all been sieged up, all of this would have just blown up. It was like a really crazy kamikaze counter that he didn't need to do. He just needed to bring like 2 Goliaths back and be fine. But instead he went for this crazy counter, and it only worked because for some reason Magicbullet refused to siege any of his tanks. And uh-oh, tanks are coming forward here on walk command and in a line no less. But he does get some tanks up to the position of the natural, so that is good for him here. But the downside is he's actually lost his natural. And while he did get a lot of SCV kills, and probably got to a point briefly where he had more SCVs, he lost some at the natural, and he lost the natural itself, so his economy is just absolutely fucked right now, for lack of a better word. Y could use 2 more in gas here. Y's economy is still hurting. He is producing SCVs, certainly not as much as we'd like to see. I mean, this is a pretty bad economy for 13 minutes, 30 seconds into a game. We're looking at like 6 or 7 SCVs there. We've got maybe 10 here. 4 or 5 here. It's just, you know, he's got a base and a half of economy, but it's a lot better than, well, 1 base of economy. What do we have here? SCV counts are actually very similar in numbers, but again, they would be much higher with a 2nd base here for Y had he, or for Magicbullet had he had his tanks sieged up. But he's still now dealing with this contain, this position of Y. Y has had time to turret up a little bit, so the position's still very, very good for Y. In all honesty, it's probably better at this point for Y to just sit behind this bridge. Sitting right here, the tanks could sort of come across and kind of move in and siege up with what resembles like a nice wide line or an arc. Sieged back, it's much harder to do, and it just makes the contain almost unbreakable. It's a really powerful position. He's actually sieging, blocking his natural, and the fact that he's just sitting here on one base and not doing anything is really, really bad for Magicbullet. It's basically guaranteeing his loss. He's in a terrible spot. Okay, well, at least he's trying to retake the space, but he's going to have to move these tanks maybe up over here or something. He has just enough room to take this base. These spotter wraiths are actually pretty nice, but quite a few turrets out there to prevent the wraiths from actually sniping the tanks, and no real attempt to play around this. You know, I think first mistake for Magicbullet was sieging up this defensively inside. He should have been sieged out forward, outside of his bridges. Actually had some position of some sort on the map, so this didn't happen in the first place. And then the Wraith counter was really nice, but the second major mistake was not having all these tanks sieged up. And then I would say the third thing that is not great is as soon as he realized he was contained like this, the better option would have been to grab the dropships and try to do something with the dropships. Or the other option would be to really commit to trying to break the contain, do a big SCV pull and try to break the contain. But the better option would have been saying, okay, well, I see that you're putting all your units up here at the front, and it was all his units, so I'm going to take 2 dropships and just drop, you know, 3 dropships, drop 4 or 5 tanks and some vultures in your main, and watch everything else die. And then you have to take your contain back and try to get rid of my drop that's now in a perfect position inside your base. And Y had very, very little preparation for that. So I guess like the general way I would distill the decision-making aspect of that is if you're contained, like, don't get contained in the first place in TVT is good, but if you are, then your thought needs to be, okay, if I attack into his contain, it's going to be really efficient for him. I may or may not even break it, but it's certainly going to be really efficient for him. It's not a good deal for me, so I don't want to do that. So then the question becomes, how can I play around that? Can I make wraiths to avoid the contain and break the contain that way? Can I go around it? Can I sneak a couple bases? You know, there's got to be some sort of option. If you just are contained and then you just try to fight the contain, that's usually picking the worst option, especially if it's a reasonably strong contain. I mean, if you know you can break it, if it's a weak contain, then break it. But if it's a decent contain, then playing into the contain is like playing into the hands of exactly what the player wants you to do. Now, he is trying to take this base. He's actually trying to expand a shitload. Holy shit, he built a fuckload of command centers. I didn't even realize that. Jesus Christ. Do we have a +2 upgrade? Okay, so Y is almost going to be at +2 here fairly soon. Magicbullet is sneaking bases like mad, or trying to. He's actually made 2 CCs, 2 extra CCs, and floated them out. Unsieging here. Okay, he's trying to get like an inch of space, but he's actually in range, so I think he's going to end up losing a couple tanks here, and probably this one as well. Is it in range? Yeah, it's going to be close. +2 is not quite done. Which tank shoots first? Shit, I don't know. Okay, so yeah, he loses 2 more tanks here. Money really hurting. So now he's making a bunch of dropships. He actually does have this fleet of dropships, and this actually still has the potential to do some damage, although earlier there was 0 turrets, now there are some turrets. Which might limit the dropship movement a little bit. I mean, no doubt a drop of 3, 4, 5 dropships is going to get in and unload plenty of units. But Y just putting everything into his contain. And from Y's perspective, I would say the thought process here should be, oh, okay, well, I got this guy contained. It's a pretty powerful position for me. I can expand rather aggressively, which he didn't necessarily do. And the other part of the contain is basically, okay, I know he's contained, so he's probably not going to try to just fight my contain. He's probably going to try to do something about it. So what does that leave him? Wraiths? Okay, I can prepare for that. And or drops, I can prepare for that, which usually means starting to get up something of a turret ring and possibly having a few units at home, or maybe a couple wraiths of your own to try to shoot down dropships. But you gotta kind of expect that. And Y would have been caught very off guard by dropships or that kind of play. And we even see how off guard Y was caught by those raids. I mean, he lost all of the SCVs at his natural and quite a few in his main. It really set him back. I mean, he's obviously fully rebounded from that now. He's got his +2. And, oh, well, that's air attack. Holy shit. I did not realize he was getting Wraith upgrade. So he's not going to have, Magicbullet's not going to have +2 anytime soon, so huge tank advantage. Literally +2 siege tank attack in TVT might be the most powerful upgrade in StarCraft. The difference between 2-shotting tanks and 3-shotting tanks is obviously ridiculous. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Mr. Waste Melam Toxic. Waste Melam Toxic. I don't know what the Melam is. You're absolutely right. He is expanding. Unfortunately, he's expanding far too little, far too late. Now, it's a little bit sloppy that Y isn't checking bases, looking for this, because if something went wrong for Y, he did something really bad, and all of a sudden his opponent has all these bases, then he's going to really regret this loss, because these are bases that just don't deserve to exist at all. The fact that he let him have this base is not great. The fact that this base is being snuck is not great. And I mean, if Y just sits here for the next couple minutes and Magicbullet turrets up and gets a few factories and some tanks here, then it becomes a game again. Now the upgrades are still going to be really good for Y, but it would be a pretty big mistake for Y. He does have a few dropships though, so he actually does have the ability to shut down a base like this, particularly if he keeps pumping those dropships, which he is. So that should allow him to break up this base. He'll have a few options, and Magicbullet actually gets some some vultures out on the map here via this third base, but unfortunately it looks like Y is ready for this and is just going to devour those vultures alive. And of course upgrades here are favoring Y, although he's stopped upgrading here at 2-0. He's not started an armor upgrade. He's not started that third attack upgrade. Let's see, there was a mine at the bottom and on the right. Yeah, there's one here. But this base has been allowed to sneak. This base has been allowed to sneak. I don't know. And it looks like Magicbullet has actually found some nice SCVs here. So getting, what is that, maybe 8-9 kills? 2 or 3 on most of the vultures. So Y should probably send some vultures back to deal with this. It was weird that he didn't, because he was actually fighting this over here, and then he just basically said, well, whatever, I'll just let these vultures run around. I don't know if he's just scared a little bit that maybe he thinks Magicbullet just has a shitload in here and he's going to somehow like mess up his contain. But it looks like Y is absolutely gearing up for some sort of a drop. We'll see where he's going to take that drop. Again, though, Magicbullet's starting to get quite a few bases. I mean, if he clears out this mine, then he has almost half the map and similar base count here to Mr. Y, who needs to rebuild that. Hasn't cleared out these vultures yet. He's focused on this drop right now. It looks like he's going to go for the main. Oh, what an unfortunate time for Magicbullet to be loading up. But he does have at least one of these dropships loaded. Let's see, these tanks need to siege, though. And it's a bit slow to siege. All right, so Y has dropped some siege tanks over here, but Y is also not sieging. Oh my god, the tanks need to siege up. It's apparently we're just doing no siege drops, but several of these dropships for Y are going to go down here in the midst of this action. And it looks like as Y does this drop, okay, finally sieges his tanks, and he's going to come in here and try and clear out these vultures. But remember, top right and 6 o'clock base are still mining here for Magicbullet. And that is certainly allowing Magicbullet access to a lot more resources than he would have expected. And it looks like Magicbullet has either remade or kept some of those rays alive. And they actually do have pretty good upgrades. So they will damage these siege tanks fairly fast. But a lot of depots have been lost in the process. And now, with just a few tanks here, Y is trying to push into the natural. And he is succeeding at the moment. Now, I don't think he's going to get this tank down unless he gets a very fortunate shot. And actually, I guess that's just enough. Can't quite clear those tanks enough. Losing his natural says GG. So that game will go to Y, although it got a lot closer than it probably ever should have. Got a lot closer than it probably should have. It's not L, it's I. Oh. Waste me, I am oh. Yes, okay, suddenly it makes a lot more sense now. Alright, that's going to lead us to Game 2 between these two players here on Autobahn. Alright, so spawning in the top left-hand corner as the red Terran, we have Y. And in the bottom right-hand corner as the blue Terran, we have Magicbullet. Wait, waste melon? No, waste me, I am. But yeah, I was seeing like waste melom. I was like, what is melom? But yeah. Alright, so it was a pretty convincing win for Y in Game 1 overall. I mean, there were definitely some mistakes, but Y basically took a fantastic position that more or less he never relinquished. I mean, some harass, some drops set him back more than would have been ideal for him, but he certainly had the game by the throat. And we'll see if it was largely due, though, to the decision-making from Magicbullet. Now, here on Autobahn, we'll see if that changes. And, of course, this is a map that Magicbullet has picked. I believe my understanding of the league is that loser gets to pick the map. So Magicbullet has chosen to play on this. So we'll see if he has a particularly prepared strategy in mind or something of that nature. Of course, no ramp here. So sitting back in the main will definitely have a little bit less defensive power without a doubt. And then we have our path through the center here with the double gases. You've got kind of a high ground pod here with a base. And then you've got a ramped base over here that's actually enterable from both sides. And then you have the ramp with a few eggs that are a little bit narrow. Gas base over here. Very much a two-player map. And okay, this is an interesting SCV scouting trajectory. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with this SCV. I really don't. Maybe just checking for proxies. Perhaps Magicbullet has a reputation. I really don't know. Either that or he just doesn't know the map at all. Although that would be a very odd direction to go. Given that he's also circling back to the top, I feel like he must be looking for proxies. Unless he's being very indecisive about a proxy factory location of his own. Because of course we do see a gas. So it's definitely going to be a factory. Oh, okay, never mind. I was like, only one on gas, what? But now he's got two on gas, so that looking a little bit sharper, a little bit better here. And SCV coming on over here for Magicbullet. He's going to see... Okay, looks like Y is just going to build the factory here. Y's SCV finally found the way over to Magicbullet's base, I guess. Confident he scouted enough for proxies. And has enough to build the factory. He's made one Marine. The factory's getting quite a bit late now. Would have liked to have seen... Oh, whoa. He built quite a bit before that factory. I would definitely have liked to have seen that factory go down a bit faster. But at least he only built one Marine. That's good. I don't know what happened there. He, like... The SCV should have at least by default tried to run away. So he, like, held position it so it died, like, even faster than it should have. That was a bit odd. But he did see a factory going down, so that's good. And, of course, Y is going to see the same thing as his SCV leaves and dies. And so... Oh, Magicbullet has a hell of a lot of gas. But he has taken 2 off gas, so we're probably not going to see a 2-fact. Although he does actually have enough gas to where he could consider doing something crazy like a 2-fact. I don't think we're going to see it, but one never knows for sure. But now it would be getting a bit late to consider that. We actually got 400 minerals already here for Magicbullet and 500 for Y. Y in position here to expand. And it looks like Y has floated his barracks off and is headed down, and same for Magicbullet, so that is most excellent. And a vulture for both players? No. Gonna go straight for the siege tank again. So Magicbullet feeling much more comfortable with the early siege tanks, and I can understand why. It's the less common option in TVT nowadays, but you know, you can open that way. It does work. You don't get map control when you play that way against a vulture player because there's just too many mines. So you kind of cede map control for what is generally, in most cases, a little more safety. Now, where are we going from here in terms of deviations? Obviously, we see an engineering bay. All right, so we got 2 facts from Y and an engineering bay here from Magicbullet. I think that's a bit fast for an engineering bay. I don't really think it's useful. I mean, he might be wanting this to just, like, block off his natural against vultures. Mines being researched. Command center about to finish here for both players, actually. Should see a maynard of SCVs right about now. Again, though, SCV counts are pretty low. Could definitely be higher at this point. Let's see how he got his transfer. Alright, another good transfer. As a general rule of thumb, you just want to transfer away so that you have 1 per patch remaining in the main. That will optimize your mining the best. So if you only have, like, you know, if you expand really fast, you only have like 14 SCVs, you only want to transfer like 5 of them. Transferring any more is overkill. And an armory goes up here for Magicbullet, so he's playing very anti-Wraith looking right now. Just preparing for that, but of course he's got his barracks coming in here now, so he's going to see exactly what Y is up to. And Y actually has his Marine out over here on the map, so absolutely nothing at the moment to deter this barracks. We'll see if the barracks prompts Goliath to be made just to get rid of it. And in comes Y. Oh, well, maybe not. Y's barracks says, I'm going to take a break. Time to take a break. just chill here for a moment. And again, Magicbullet, unfortunately, he's playing his TVT, so this is something you don't want to do in TVT. He's got what more or less amounts to a wall and a tank at a wall. So, two problems with this. Number one, it puts you back in a defensive position, and TVT map control is important. And number two, big walls like this, if your opponent brings down siege tanks and just sieges up here, you just lose everything at the wall. So walls aren't particularly powerful. You know, if you need to emergency block, you know, like putting an eBay there temporarily, or like an eBay here and then putting a unit or two here to wall off against the threat of heavy vulture, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But building just a straight wall structure is usually not a good TVT decision. So Y is going to get a pretty fast upgrade. He's going to grab that starport. Looks like actually both players are upgrading. And Magicbullet, if he stays on top of his upgrades, will have the ability to have +2 just a little bit faster than Y. He'll have a small window to maybe do some aggression with those +2 tanks. And definitely sticking with heavy tank production, whereas Y sticking with quite a few more vultures. He's got a few tanks out, but we can see vulture production kicking into full swing here. And the comsats being added for both players. Actually, no, I lied. There's not even an academy here for Magicbullet, so no comstats for Magicbullet, but there is a command center. So looking to float that out. Marine in a pretty good position here to spot for this base, and Y is also taking his third command center. Now this time Y has not opted to come across the map and go for the contain. We'll see if that changes. He's got, basically, Magicbullet is sitting back for free saying, hey, please come contain me. And yeah, you're right, Magicbullet has basically no map vision, no vultures, no scans. Just has a barracks. I mean, he did see what Y was making, but he's playing very in the dark, whereas Y has a pretty good idea of what's out here. He knows there's basically nothing out on the map. He's got these mines. His barracks gone. Oh, what do we have over here? Well. We got a little bit of cuteness going on. Oh my god. Oh my god, is he gonna see it? Hey, I'm oh man, this is a hard name to say. I'm Jiraiya. Thank you for the host, my friend. I appreciate it. Alright, so the 4 Marine surprise attack, this would be much cooler if it was Firebats, but actually we are getting a few SCV kills. I think we're at about 4 now. Unfortunately, they suddenly decided to make the decision to fight a tank rather than target fire SCVs. But hey, I guess if 4 Marines walk in and kill 4 SCVs, that's a pretty good investment. And Jake Pliskin, thanks for the host as well, my friend. Appreciate it. If you guys just tuned in here, just got sent over here, just watching, this is CPL Team League. We are watching Week 8 right now. We are at our first Tier 3 match. So DE level play, doing a little bit of replay analysis, a little bit of replay commentary of these games, talking about things that players can do better, and just kind of commentating the game in general. So, alright, Magicbullet this time has made the decision to get out on the map, which is, oh, well, I was going to say it was good, but then he is going to maybe crawl back to his, okay, he needs to bring these tanks. These tanks are doing absolutely nothing. Not part of any sort of a line. He has cleared off this vulture, and let's see where he sieges these tanks. Sieging them up here would actually be a very nice spot. That almost forms like an arc with them sieged up here, and it looks like we have the first Wraith out from Magicbullet, which will hopefully incite some Goliath. Whoa, 3 shops? We don't have a 3rd gas yet, so he cannot afford to make tanks out 3 shops. But hopefully we'll get a Goliath out here soon. Right now the Wraith just picking off the spotter eBay. And he is continuing to produce a few more Wraiths. Does he have any other Wraiths out on the map? Just looks like that one for the moment. Now, are we going to have Goliaths? Yeah, okay, so he did cancel some tanks, did get some Goliaths started, so he shouldn't really lose anything. 1 Wraith takes a hell of a long time to kill a tank. He can honestly just bring some SCVs and repair. No transfer to this base yet, and, like, actually, Magicbullet could have a few more, but Magicbullet's SCV production is not terrible. Wise, though, unfortunately, is still very, very bad. He does have 3, well, he's got 3 bases, so he ends up with a similar number, but he just doesn't have enough SCVs at any of his bases. That's probably the biggest thing I can see, too, from Wise games, from a mechanics and macro standpoint. Y just needs to make a lot more SCVs. Really, really major SCV deficiency. And Rene, thank you, sir, for following. I appreciate it. Welcome to my stream, if it is your first time here. I'm sure many of you have watched casts in the past, but if it is your first time, welcome. If it's not, well, still welcome. Alright, so we're starting to make a few SCVs here for Mr. Magicbullet. We got reinforcements coming out here, but if you look at the position on the map, we can see right away it's very good for Y. He's got a 3rd base up faster, and he's got a 3rd command center. And Magicbullet is just sitting way too far back in his natural, playing this way too defensively. And it's really going to cost him because Y is just having the most casual, comfortable game in the world. We're going to have this Vulture sneak in over here. Of course, there's only about 3 or 4 SCVs, so might force a lift on the command center because actually, oh, if Y's tank line was only a little bit further, it would completely cut this off and it would actually force a lift. In this case, he can just bring up a few tanks and clear out these Vultures. Now let's see, he's moving forward here. Needs to be very careful though. And there's a Wraith here to be annoying, but there are some Goliaths back, and yes, it is going to annoyingly force a lift. And that's more time with Y on 3 gases, although he's only mining that 3rd gas with 1 SCV. Loses the Wraith pretty quickly. Goliath's coming forward here, moving them back into a safe spot, going to get rid of that spotter barracks. And no, he did not go into the +2 because there is no science facility. There is, however, a science facility for Y, but Y has not started the +2 upgrade yet. So in the race for +2, it remains to be seen. All right, Goliaths are moving a little too far forward. Oh no! Oh no! We're running into the tank line here. And yeah, Y has pretty good position here. He's got Vultures over here. He's got mines. He knows that Magicbullet can't set up any sort of a vertical tank line. He knows that there's nothing. Well, he doesn't actually know there's nothing over here, but he's got tanks far enough forward that Magicbullet can't sneak units over here. So he's got a pretty darn good setup here. Magicbullet is trying to come forward, and he will get this tank, which is going to wander on to its death. But we can see these supplies starting to really favor Y at this point. There's actually a hell of a lot of tanks out here for Magicbullet, who's been producing basically just pure 4-shop. Okay, you can't actually afford 4-shop tanks, but if we are missing production, you can have 4 shops. So it's just a massive number of tanks here for Magicbullet and nothing else. Possibly even enough tanks that he could break up this line, but he needs to do something here. He's sending a few Goliaths, but they might just walk into the mines and die, and that's a lot of Vultures. Like, a group of Vultures can take a Goliath or 2. So this Goliath is going to go down, and realistically, Magicbullet, I mean, he's got access to this ramp. He just needs to send, like, 2 or 3 tanks over here and clear this out, but he's been letting these Vultures deny this command center for a very, very, very long time, and that's really causing him to slip further and further behind Y. Y has a much better factory count, 4 against 6. Y should really have about 9 factories at this point, especially with a 4th base coming up. But again, he's a little deficient in SCVs, so that might explain some of why he doesn't want to put down all of those factories that he could put down. And unfortunately, this is just putting Magicbullet further and further behind. Alright, well, Magicbullet's going to unsiege here. Out of control group. Where's he going with this? Where's he going with this? Oh, no, he's just going to siege back up. It's just a tease. And apparently, Magicbullet's just going to switch back into Vultures. He's adding a science facility, which I like. He's adding a command center. Did we get the +2? Okay, so massively faster +2 coming up here. For Y, so that's going to give his tanks a huge advantage. It's going to make this contain almost unbreakable when it takes just 2 shots to kill, especially when you have to siege up and then take 3 shots to kill your opponent's tanks. Oof, and the fact that this command center is not landed, it's just, there's not really much else to say here for Magicbullet. I mean, given what Y had to work with, I can't criticize too much about Y's play from a strategical standpoint, but of course, you know, it's a simple game when your opponent just sits back and lets you do this, but Y did exactly what he should have done. The only downsides for Y here is just SCV production obviously needs to be a hell of a lot better, and needs to get more factories down sooner. I mean, 6 facts for a long time on 3 bases just doesn't cut it, but I mean, you know, he's expanding a lot now. He could do this sooner. Once you have a solid contain like this, you definitely don't have to take this long to expand to bases, but, you know, these are all relatively minor points. The big thing is the SCV production. And the big issue here for Magicbullet, you know, there's obviously the usual macro issues. Just needs more consistent SCVs, needs a few more factories, not 4 shops. But the big thing from a strategy standpoint is you just can't sit back and TVT. I mean, this is like he's got a big ass army, but literally it won't go anywhere against this, especially once this +2 finishes here. And he still hasn't cleared out. He's just ignoring, like, this is killing me. He doesn't need to have all these tanks here. He just needs to send, like, 4 tanks and some Vultures over here and just clear out. So, he was like, I don't know if he's just afraid and didn't want to move his tank line and just made all these Vultures so he could clear these Vultures. But no, he's going for it now. And he was able to go in before +2 goes. This is not the best kind of attack, and he didn't bring in all of his tanks. Now, the D-Matrices at the front are kind of cute, but look at the concave that Y has set up here. It's just really powerful. A few Wraiths are coming forward. I guess they're spotter Wraiths. The Goliath's also moving forward, but they are getting shot by the tanks. So, yes, Magicbullet moves forward, but he only gains about an inch And he loses, trades very, very inefficiently to do so, although Y is basically bleeding in all of his non-siege tank units. Oh, Science Vessel's gonna go down. Alright, Goliath range takes care of the Science Vessel, and now it's +2 time. And still hasn't done anything about these Vultures. So, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious at this point that this is going to be Y's game. There's not really a whole lot here that Magicbullet can do. He doesn't have any hidden expos of any sort. He tries to build these command centers, but they just come way too late, and Y is doing a good job on top of this. And okay, finally, Magicbullet decides to come over here, decides he should clear out these Vultures. He's absolutely right, but this really, really should have been done 5 minutes ago. He will finally be able to land his third, but that's not really going to gain him too much. We'll see how Y handles this, but I really don't think there are too many good options here for Magicbullet at this point in time. A few reinforcements coming on down here. And let's see, Y is taking the gases at the other bases. Now he is going to allow Magicbullet to go ahead and grab this base, but again, +2 against not any +1. He's working towards his +2 here. He's trying to move forward. He's got these tanks on siege like he wants to try again, but it's a much better concave. There's even a dropship out now, which is very frightening. And against those +2 tanks, you just can't move forward. He tries to move forward. Most of his tanks are just dying. We do have a small drop here into the main by Y as he tries to harass a little bit. I don't even think you can call this anything more than harass. And it looks like he might actually kill a factory. There's no response at all from Magicbullet. He's just, okay, now he's going to send some tanks back, but he's only got 3 tanks at the front. So, obviously, this is enough that, yeah, Y's going to move forward on this. He's moving forward a little bit uncoordinated. Siege is up, though, but he's got the advantage of that +2 that is not kicked in yet for Magicbullet. Looks like he won't quite break the position, but the harass is continuing here. A factory has actually died to this, and the 3rd base now getting shut down. And, of course, the 4th attempt never got mining here for Magicbullet. And we should be seeing GG here shortly. There's not really anything left, and there we go. Y will take that 2nd game. So yeah, Magicbullet just needs to change the first part of his TVT, and his games will go way, way better. Just needs to not sit back quite so far.